Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Hyperconscious Podcast. Alan, what is hyperconscious?
Once you understand why something is the way that it is, now you have the power to change it. Great conversations with great people and great questions are the keys to the kingdom of unlocking your consciousness.
Every single action that you do starts as a thought. When you control the way you think, you will control the way you act, and you will control the way you live. That is hyperconscious. Geographically? Geographically. This is cool. So I would say make sure that pretty face is showing.
Yes, true.
They're going to want to see that thing. They're going to want to see that thing, Alan. That face. You good? Ready? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of the Hyperconscious Podcast. If you are listening to this, it is Wednesday, which means it is another 20-minute Scratching the Surface episode. And happy Turkey Day, because if you're listening to this, tomorrow is Turkey Day, and we will not talk to you until after. So happy Turkey Day.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
What are we going to talk about today, Alan?
So Kevin and I, as you know, if you listen to the Joanna episode, the second one, round 2, I think it was episode 78, we set an intention to go to Oprah's event at Umass Lowell, and we did do that. Actually, I have a picture up of us three in the arena right now, and we want to talk about what we learned at that event, what our takeaways were, why it's so important to go to full immersion events like that.
Joanna was 76. The second rep with Joanna was 76.
Thank you for the correction, Kevin.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a very interesting thing, especially seeing somebody as famous, as powerful, as just so well known as her in person. I told you this, I went to see Joe Rogan. This is completely different, but seeing somebody that, Joe Rogan's my hero, basically, right? Mm-hmm. And being able to see him in person makes you realize that achieving that is a lot closer than you actually think it is, because it's just a regular person.
At the end of the day, human being.
Yeah, it's just a regular person.
Yep.
So being able to see her was awesome. Being able to see Joanna see her hero was amazing. We got to take some pictures on the stage, and then we got to drive home in a snowstorm.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That was the whole thing. So Joanna's hero is Oprah, and she, on episode 76 at the end, said, "Don't worry, Oprah, when you retire, like, I got this." It was just cool to see someone that all in, see her hero live. I've seen Tony Robbins live in Boston. I went and saw Brendan Burchard live with you at HPA Live, and both of them were right in front of me several times. And it is interesting to be in person with someone versus someone that you've just seen, online, YouTube, things like that. So being in person definitely locks it into your mind a little more, because I always say what you admire is what you become if you're willing to work towards that. And so both with Brendan and with Tony, when they were both right in front of me, I felt it. I was like, yeah, this is good. This is awesome.
What were my biggest takeaway, and we'll talk about that.
Yes.
But I'm sure Alan took 3.5 pages of notes, and I ate a slice of pizza that was about the size of a small child. And that's what I did. So I didn't take any notes because the seats were crammed, and I just didn't really want to be leaning all over Alan. So, Alan, what are your takeaways? And then we'll do my takeaways.
So to me, Oprah is someone that, as Kevin mentioned, is super influential. Her ability to influence people is greater than almost anyone. When you say the word Oprah, you know who we're talking about without having to say Oprah Winfrey. So she's at that level, right? There was a few takeaways. One of them was the 29 meals that she spent with Nelson Mandela. And then the way that she admired him was fascinating. When your heroes have heroes, you start to connect the dots as to why Oprah is Oprah.
I think that her storytelling, number one, is amazing. You and I, well, I'll speak for myself. I wasn't overly impressed with the interviewer.
I'm glad you mentioned that.
But, maybe that's just because we take pride in interviewing people and maybe it just didn't resonate with me. I don't know.
I think it makes sense that you weren't impressed. I also wasn't because that's your craft.
And it's not my style either.
Yeah.
It's not my style. But it really, the way she went into her story and the way she brought emotion, I told you this after, that a lot of people, if you're listening to this right now, you're into personal development, you're into mindset, you're looking for that mindset motivation, but not everybody is. And leaving that event, I realized that if somebody that you're mesmerized by, if one of your heroes starts talking about like some deep hyperconscious stuff, you're more than likely going to listen and you're more than likely going to take something from it. Oprah was talking about some deep shit.
Yes, she was.
It's some deep shit.
Yeah, we'll get into specifics too.
Yeah.
This is just the opening.
Yeah, and I was blown away. I didn't expect that.
You didn't?
I didn't know what to expect. This was this was just an uncertain event for me. I just showed up because Joanna, this was to support Joanna, and I ended up getting more out of it than I expected, looking back on it. So,
and I can't wait to talk about what you really got out of it.
Yes.
So Kevin was not super impressed with the interviewer. And again, that person, I don't think does interviews often, right? And so obviously she said she prepared for 2 months, but like it's Oprah, right? So that's a challenging thing.
Oh, yeah.
And you're in front of how many people were there? Probably 2,000 or something like that?
So, yeah. I think probably three or four.
3,000 or 4,000,
Yeah.
And so you call yourself a conversationalist. And one of the things that I took away was Oprah's ability to, basically, if the questions weren't deep, she kind of went deep anyway.
She expanded.
Yeah, she expanded a lot,
Yeah.
almost to the point where she was interrupting the interviewer.
Yeah.
But that's because her focus was how to serve the audience, right? And so if the questions weren't catered to what she wanted to make sure the world hears from her, she wanted to make sure she maximized the value. I remember at one point, Kevin was like, I think it's almost over, man. And, we paid $179 to go. Granted, we got our tickets a little late. And we had pretty good seating. But I remember you saying, like, this is a little more expensive for what it was, right? Do we want to go into, like, the takeaway after from, like, realizing that that's actually not?
So, on the way home, so actually, as we were getting ready to leave the event, I knew it was going to be snowing. Alan didn't, because Alan doesn't care about anything other than getting better at his craft and fitness and all that happy jazz. And that's fine. Like, I'm the logistics guy. It's my job to know what's going to happen, right? So we're walking out to the parking garage. It's snowing. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be terrible. So we drop Joanna off at her car, and we're on the way home. It's snowing. The highway is covered in snow. We're doing 30 miles an hour on 495.
Yep.
And
Big traffic jam.
I said to Alan, I need to make more money.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the event,
Yes.
the school donated.
So the event was hosted as a scholarship fund.
Okay.
For, remember the students who came out at the
Yes,
end?
yes.
They were all getting scholarships.
Okay,
So they
so
applied.
They
Oprah read their essays for their applications.
Yeah. So they ended up raising $1.5 million for scholarships. Then Oprah just snapped her fingers and matched the $1.5 million.
Yep.
And
Oprah is such a G.
it's just next level. And I have a number written down on my vision board. I won't say what it is, but I need more than that now, because
You want to be able to do that.
I want to be able to do that. There are certain things. Josh, one of the listeners, reached out. Him and I were talking, and then I checked out his GoFundMe page. He's a service veteran. He has PTSD, and he has all these things that he took back from battle, and he wants to get a service animal. And it's like, I want to be able to do that.
Yeah.
I just want to be able to fly out there, pick out a dog, take it home. All right, cool, man. Let's spend. I'll take you out to lunch. Like, I want to be able to do that shit. So seeing her donate $1.5 million at the drop of the hat motivated me beyond belief.
And to me, for the listeners, that is the exact reason why I think going to events is so important. I have a flashcard in my pocket right now, as always, and it's called Tony Robbins' Rules of Success. And there's 5 things on it. I won't go into all 5, but one of them is at least twice a year, you have to go to an event where you are fully immersed, preferably with one of your heroes. And that could be Unleash the Power Within. That could be seeing Oprah live. That could be the Brendan Burchard event we went to. I'm already talking to you about Experts Academy that we're trying to get into with Brendan Burchard for 2019.
Yes.
So that to me is the reason, guys and girls out there, if you don't go to networking events because you think it doesn't matter, I think that's a huge mistake. Kevin spent $179 and we're about halfway through, maybe 3/4 of the way through, and he said, this was a pretty expensive ticket for what it was. But if you think about the fact that you upped your dreams by that much, even if you never achieve your dreams, that is going to force you to level up to a whole nother degree. And seeing someone who at the drop of a hat can donate $1.5 million to help educate kids who need money to go to college, man. I had financial aid to go to college because I was poor. I had free lunch in high school, man. Like, we had no money. And if I didn't get financial aid, I couldn't have gone to WPI, and we wouldn't be sitting here right now. So Oprah is able to, at the drop of a hat, donate that kind of money to a cause she cares about, and she's all about education and empowerment. Now you saw that live, and now you will forever be striving to be a better person because of it.
Let's also, and this is, I'm just thinking of this now. I'm a very different learner than Alan. It takes me a while to I gotta take a step back, feel out the process. Like, I don't remember what we talk about in the podcast till I listen to them again. Alan's always knows exactly what's going on. But you gotta think, a year ago, not even a year ago, we were talking about this the other day. The event on the island where there was a password with Mariana.
Oh yeah, password.
Which was, you know what episode she was? We got to get a list on the wall somewhere with all the episodes.
Episode 30? No. 48?
No,
no, that's Travis.
She was in the 60s.
Yeah. She was
but 8 months ago,
yeah.
I skipped out on a date with somebody because I was like, yo, you got to understand, I got invited to this private island party.
Yeah.
And I know it sounds crazy, but this is kind of a big deal for me.
Yeah.
That was a big deal.
You were shaking in your boots.
I was shaking in my boots.
Yeah.
Then we ended up having the next networking event down the Cape with Mariana Costa again.
Oh, yeah.
That was nothing.
With the guy who had a manager for his car.
Yeah. And that was nothing compared to the island thing in my mind.
Yep.
Then we went to
Brendan
Burchard's event.
Yep.
So I think maybe my assumptions about the event, I just didn't know what to expect. And my latest thing was Brendan Burchard's event. So I'm assuming it's going to be the next level thing. So I think what I expected was just different too. Realistically, my expectations were just different.
So this is why expectations are dangerous. So I often say that good habits don't always happen because the benefits don't come till later. You mentioned that you don't always connect the dots until later, and you're like, oh, wow, that actually did change me forever. It's almost like when you, going to the gym, it's the greatest analogy. You have to do it long enough to realize it's worth it. You doubted the value of that event. I didn't once. The only difference is because I've been to more of them.
Right.
So I've seen the tail end. I saw myself a year after seeing Tony Robbins in person, and I only got to see Tony for 2.5 hours. And I got to, hear Edelman and Tom Brady. But, that event is where I went to a book publishing seminar from that event, and then I met Terrence there. So I have more dots connected to the value. Summer. We would never have met Summer, which is episode number 80, by the way, if it wasn't for Brendan's event. You went there to support Joanna, and that's huge. And now we built more rapport. We should talk about, after the event, we talked in the car about our 5-year vision. Joanna's next level. She's always asking about the future and vision, and she's just so excited to create a bright future and integrate. And she said to me, she's like, I see us on that stage, no question. She wants me to be, she already was talking about all the events like this she wants to create at schools like Umass Lowell. So, and she wants me to be her fitness speaker. So hell yeah. Think about if I didn't go. That thought wouldn't be a thing, therefore it wouldn't ever become a thing. So one day when I'm on the stage at Joanna's event at UMass Lowell or whatever other school, it's going to be because we put in the rep today. And if you can't connect those dots, it's because you haven't done it long enough to start connecting them.
Well, is it from the compound effect where he says it's not about what you're going to make here, it's what you're going to become here?
That's a Jim Rohn quote. It's
well, so
true.
There is one, I don't know, Rich Dad Poor Dad. In Rich Dad Poor Dad, it's along the same lines. It's don't worry about what you're making monetarily here.
Yeah.
Worry about what you're becoming from it.
Totally.
And I've really tried to do that lately, even when it comes to just anything. Just realizing that just because you don't see the immediate benefit. Just because it doesn't feel good right away, it doesn't mean it won't, and it doesn't mean it's not going to pay off in the future.
Yeah.
Like, that's how interest works. Interest collects. You know what I mean? Pennies don't make a difference until they start adding up.
Exactly.
So I'm really trying to learn that, like, it's just because you can't see it forming in front of your eyes. Again, this podcast wasn't a thing.
Mm-hmm.
We're 80 episodes deep. Like, I never even pictured that. Imagine that.
I know.
We're 80 up. This is 81.
And that means that every decision you've made up until
Yeah.
now was the only reason this is a thing.
Yeah.
I was telling you about a lunch that I had with one of my millionaire mentors Sunday. Yesterday. Yes, yesterday. He's doing some really, really next level stuff that I can't talk about, but he's basically taking someone who is super passionate, who is an EMT, who's been trying to save lives, who has a patent on a new product that's going to save tons of lives, and Jeff is now able to put him in the right rooms to where, again, I can't get into this, a lot of money for the patent. The point is that Jeff was talking to me. It was my 30th birthday on 450. Okay. It was my 30th birthday on
Happy
Saturday.
birthday to
And
you.
Jeff brought up, like, where was I at 30? And we analyzed that. This is why having mentors is so powerful, because there's that great quote by Steve Jobs where he says, you cannot connect the dots moving forward. You have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future, because that'll give you the courage to do stuff like going to this Oprah event. So when you have mentors, you can connect the dots because you see that the things they're doing now, in the now, would never be a thing if it wasn't for all the other stuff they did. So it brings a level of urgency to your youth. And that's why I'm such a proponent of having mentors. Like, that's why I go to an Oprah event, to be frank. I want to see what Oprah is able to do now, dropping $1.5 million for scholarships at the drop of a hat. But I want to really pull back the curtain on what she had to do in her 30s, in her 20s, in her 40s to become Oprah. That's why I was there. That's why I took 3.5 pages of notes. I was trying to understand what's behind the stuff she's saying. At one point, Kevin, I wrote down 3 things that she was going to say, and then I called out that she was about to say it. Now, I don't study Oprah nearly as much as my other heroes, and I don't even know if I would consider her a hero. She certainly is, but she's not as much one of mine as like Tony Robbins or Brendon Burchard, Greg Plitt, those kind of people. But the point is she's a master of influence, and that's something that I'm trying to master. So there's so much that I can learn from her, especially from the feminine perspective. The 3 things I wrote down is, did you see me? Did you hear me? And did what I say mean anything to you? We're interviewers. She had the Oprah Winfrey Show, and she interviews the most successful people in the world. She mentioned Beyonce. And all of them, after the show, would ask Oprah, like, did I do a good job? Like, thumbs up or thumbs down? And I remember Oprah making a joke, like, you're Beyonce, you did great. Like, you're good. But what Oprah realized after interviewing so many people, and you and I have realized this, all people just want to be heard. They want to know that they've made a positive difference, and they want to matter. And to me, it's like, that's what we all crave. And when you're in a room with a ton of people who are all trying to improve in an immersed event, it's different than reading a book alone. You know? Both are important. You need both. And I think that a lot of people aren't really sold on networking events, and I think that's a huge tragedy.
I think it's also difficult because it requires some effort.
Mm.
Going to a hockey game's easy, man. You just sit there and watch the game. If you're in a networking event, you're going to take out what you put in. Like, I didn't meet anybody at the network event, but I also didn't try. I went and got my pizza and I sat down. I was kind of like, all right, cool. I got my pizza, But at Brendan's event, I met a ton of people because that was my focus. My focus was to meet people. I want to meet people. I want to impress people. I want to learn from other people. So I think that if you're going to a networking event, you got to understand that it's going to take a little bit of effort. You got to put yourself out there a little bit.
Totally.
And that's hard for a lot of people.
So you and I have we always talk about the reps. It's all about the reps. I couldn't agree more. Like, seriously. So how many networking events have you been to since you and I started working together?
4.
Let's go through them.
So we went to the island party.
Yep.
Which I was terrified.
Yep.
I was terrified.
I want the listeners to realize you were terrified every time.
Yeah.
So
I was unbelievably scared to the point where again, looking for excuses not to go.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
And
terrified.
So how did you push through that?
There was no other option. I couldn't say no. You know what I mean? I'm attached to you.
Okay. So me being there helped?
Oh, for sure.
I remember when we gave the password and then we drove. You're like, oh my God, is this real life?
Yeah, man.
Now that's nothing to you.
But you got to
now
understand,
you get that
man,
that's the way it is.
I know that you've said this a lot. Like we got a minute left. Well, a minute and a half. You've said a lot of times like the growth that you've had over the past year is unbelievable. It's because it's almost non-negotiable for me. Like I always say, there's no other available option. There isn't. I have to keep up with you. I'm not going to let you go. You're not going to outdo me. You know what I mean? You already have a giant head start. I got some catching up to do.
I love it, man.
So it's almost like I have to just say yes and figure it out later.
Which is what you keep doing.
I have to.
So that was the island party.
That was the island party.
What was the next one?
Oh, the first one was actually Mariana's event. Yeah, Mariana and your event where you spoke in Boston. Yeah.
Yep.
So
there's
that was
5.
the first one.
So I want the listeners to really hear this because you've grown so much.
That one was
this
terrifying.
This is a big part of why.
That one was terrifying as well.
Okay, so the Boston event, you met Jonathan Moore, you met Steve Ryder, he signed your book.
Yep.
We've had Steve Ryder on the podcast.
And Jonathan
you
Moore.
You met Mariana, you met Jonathan. Yeah, we've had Jonathan Moore on the podcast too.
It was a while
and
ago.
then Brian Wood, which is Jonathan Moore's.
Yep.
See, we're connecting dots.
Yep.
If you didn't go,
it never would have happened.
It never would have happened.
So we'll hammer out the rest of them quick. So first one was Mariana and your event in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
Second one was the private island party, which was after that.
Yep.
The third one was the event at the Cape, which
Yep.
was another Mariana event.
With the guy with the car. Who
The
has an
cars,
Asian-
I got the massage from the amazing masseuse.
Yep.
Then the next one was Brendan Burchard's event,
Yep.
which I think obviously is the biggest and baddest because that was
Epic as
epic.
shit.
And flying out to Arizona, it was a whole thing.
HPA Live.
And then this one,
Yep.
the Oprah event. Guys, I was not comfortable at any of them.
None of them.
None
and
of them.
beforehand, you were scared every time.
I was scared shitless.
Scared of planes.
Yeah,
Scared of the
everything,
money.
everything.
Scared of the investment.
But if you're not scared, that's why I'm so big on this comfort zone thing, man.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to stay in your comfort zone, you will be comfortable until you die. But comfort doesn't mean anything. Like, comfort doesn't force you to grow. It doesn't force you to expand. It doesn't force you to become. So I'm all in on that shit. I don't want to be comfortable. I want to be pushed. I want to be stretched. I want to be pressured. I want to have to become something. You know, like I'm very stressed out. I'm very overwhelmed a lot of the time.
Oh, yeah.
But when I'm not, I feel awesome. I feel like I'm
fulfilled.
Yeah, I feel like I'm succeeding. I feel like I'm doing something. I feel like I'm somebody, and I never felt that before. So
I love it. So I want for all the listeners that the theme of this podcast is, I think Kevin has grown more in the last year and a half, more than I've ever seen anyone, literally. And if you are out there right now and you want to become better, if you're listening to this podcast, you obviously do. Otherwise, you would not like us, because that's what this podcast is about. Full immersion events where you go in an effort to network and learn are going to change your life no matter what. I have been to see Tony Robbins live. I went to a book publishing seminar. I went to every one of those things that Kevin just mentioned. I met people who have changed my life, every single one. We had Summer on the podcast. We had Jonathan Moore on the podcast. We had Mariana on the podcast. We had Terrence on the podcast twice. All of those people were from networking events. The main reason to go to a networking event is, one, you will become what you admire, and seeing it in person will make it real to you. Okay, so your vision will expand, like what happened to Kevin when Oprah donated $1.5 million at the drop of a hat for a good cause that he believes in. When you see amazing people in the flesh, it makes it more real. So that's number one. Number two, other people that go to those events are also trying to change the world. They're also doing big things. They also care about what you care about, which is personal development. You got to do it. And by the way, eventually you and I want to host events.
For sure.
Where we can get hyper-conscious people in the same room.
Hyper-conscious nation!
And that's the other thing. This is the last thing we'll talk to you about. At one point, Oprah involved the audience. That was one of the cool things that I think she did. She basically gave a mic to someone in the audience because she wanted to make it more interactive. And Kevin and I had a moment where it's like, whoa, what if we had an event where we hosted a mastermind and we allowed Q&A from the audience, and then we recorded that as a podcast episode. So the fact that we went there right now, like the day after, okay, we went on Thursday? So Friday morning, it's not like, oh my God, everything's different. But it changed our thoughts and our future because our thoughts become things. And so it expanded what we know we're capable of. It expanded what we know is real. And that's what I think, if you're not sold on networking events yet, take Kevin's advice and just push through that discomfort, because every time you do it... Oh, by the way, Lori Harder's event.
Oh, yeah.
You forgot Lori's...
Completely forgot about that.
Yeah, you picked up the mic in front of 250
Yeah,
women
yeah.
plus. And you were shaking in your boots.
Oh yeah, that was not good. It was not like I literally don't remember what I asked. It was not a good question. I was nervous.
And you dropped the book while we took a
Oh
photo.
yeah, it was terrible. What Alan is basically saying is like you're gonna pick up little bits and pieces, and then you just start forming them into thoughts, and they form into things that you do, and it becomes reality. And then you look back, and you're like, how did that even happen?
Luckily, I did that.
Right.
You're gonna look back and go, luckily, I did that.
Dramatic reading time.
So Oprah has a book. She didn't actually call it a book. She called it a compilation of articles. And there's one dramatic reading that I want to read from it. And what did she frame this book as? It was she had a column in Oprah magazine, I think, where it was, what do I know for sure?
Yes.
And then she took all the articles from that and combined them into a book,
Yes.
right? So the first thing, this is what the dramatic reading, this is an Oprah special here today. So the name of the chapter is Clarity. And it is starts off with a quote by Epictetus. First say to yourself, what would you be? And then do what you have to do. I was 40 years old before I learned to say no. In my early years of working in television, I was often overwhelmed by people's view of me as benevolent caregiver. Some would spend their last dime on a bus ticket to get to me. Children would run away from home. Abused women would leave their husbands and show up at the doorstep of my studio, all hoping I'd help. In those days, I'd spend a lot of energy trying to get a girl back to her family or hanging on the phone with someone who was threatening to kill herself. I found myself writing check after check, and over time, that wore on my spirit. I was so busy trying to give all that everyone else needed me to offer that I lost touch with what I had a genuine desire to give. I'd been consumed by the disease to please, and often the word yes would be out of my mouth before I even knew it. I know exactly where the disease came from. Having a history of abuse also meant a history of not being able to set boundaries. Once your personal boundaries have been violated as a child, it's difficult to regain the courage to stop people from stepping on you. You fear being rejected for who you really are. So for years, I spent my life giving everything I could to almost anyone who asked. I was running myself ragged, trying to fulfill other people's expectations of what I should do and who I should be. What cured me was understanding the principle of intention. To quote Gary Zukav, again, from his book, The Seat of the Soul, every action, thought, and feeling is motivated by an intention, and that intention is a cause that exists as one with an effect. If we participate in the cause, it is not possible for us not to participate in the effect. In this most profound way, we are held responsible for our every action, thought, and feeling. In other words, being hyperconscious.
Ooh.
Which is to say, for our every intention. I started to examine the intention behind my saying yes when I really meant no. I was saying yes to people so they wouldn't be angry with me, so that they would think I was a nice person. My intention was to make people feel I was the one they could call on, count on, last minute, no matter what. And that was exactly what my experiences reflected, a barrage of requests in every aspect of my life. Almost done. Shortly after, I started to understand this. I got a call from somebody quite famous who wanted me to donate to his charity. He was asking for a lot of money, and I told him I had to think about it. What I thought about was, is this a cause I really believe in? No. Do I really think that writing a check is going to make any difference whatsoever? No. So why would I do it? Because I don't want this person to think I'm stingy. This was no longer a good reason enough for me. I wrote down a few words, which I now keep on my desk. Never again will I do anything for anyone that I do not feel directly from my heart. I will not attend a meeting, make a phone call, write a letter, sponsor, or participate in any activity in which every fiber of my being does not resound yes. I will act with the intent to be true to myself at all times. Before you say yes to anyone, ask yourself, what is my truest intention? It should come from the purest part of you, not from your head. If you have to ask for advice, give yourself time to let a yes or no resound within you. When it's right, your whole body feels it. I know for sure that I had to first get clear about who I was before I could beat the disease to please. When I accepted that I was a decent, kind, and giving person, whether I said yes or no, I no longer had anything to prove. I was once afraid of people saying, "Who does she think she is?" Now I have the courage to stand and say, "This is who I am."
Interesting. We're talking about money before. I think that you and I always say this. It's very important, and I try super hard to get back to everybody that reaches out because I know one day it's just not going to be feasible.
Yeah.
And there is that fine line. I lose sleep some nights. I stay up later than I should trying to help somebody. So it's a fine line.
Not sustainable.
It's not sustainable.
Yep.
But for now, I will lose sleep over it because I like doing it.
Well, when you get to a level of success and execution, you get more opportunities.
Yeah.
If you think about the amount of polls on Oprah's attention, she donated $1.5 million because she wanted to, because she believes in education over anything else. And can you imagine how many people reach out to Oprah trying to get something from her?
I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
One day that may be something we have to deal with. I think we all deal with it in our own lives when it comes to people pulling on our attention. And that's something that I wanted to read to everybody because I think we're all spread a little too thin when it comes to not understanding. The last thing I'll leave the listeners with is this. Like, you can have the best ship in the world, you can have the best airplane in the world, but again, if you don't know where you're headed, if the captain doesn't know where to go, you're just going to drift around. And people will tell you what you should be, what you should think, what you should be doing. Like, I constantly get pulled into things. You and I were talking in the preamble about things you don't want to do.
Yeah.
That you're getting asked to do because you're supposed to do them, right? The night before Thanksgiving, you're supposed to go party. Well, what if I don't want to? What if that's not in my heart? So for all of you, I hope you have an awesome Thanksgiving. Be super grateful. If there's anything we can take out of Oprah's book, it's don't make the mistake she made of just trying to please everybody. Do what's in your heart. Do what's sustainable. And I think that that's going to lead to your greatest level of contribution.
I love it. Yeah, you got to stay true to yourself because if they always say like a liar has to lie in order to keep the lie going.
Oh, yeah.
If you just be true to who you are, you won't set precedents that you can't keep. You'll be the person you are. You'll be the person you want to be. You'll do the things you want to do because people won't ask you not to do them.
That was really profound what you just did.
Everything I say is profound. Ladies and gents, I hope you have a glorious Thanksgiving. And Alan and I were talking about this earlier. We need to carry on this gratitude past Thanksgiving, past Christmas if you celebrate it, past whatever it is that you celebrate, past your New Year's resolution, and for the rest of the year because it's not just a holiday.
No.
Like, being grateful for what you have is all the time. Being happy for the people in your life should be all the time. I'm super grateful for the listeners. Alan, I'm super grateful for you. Happy Turkey Day. Be safe, and we will talk to you later.
Super grateful for all of you. Keep chasing dreams, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye. Ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoyed our latest Scratching the Surface episode, all about the Oprah event and networking events in general. Up next, we have a very special episode featuring Brant Pinvidic.
This was one of the most unique episodes we've ever had. All intensive purposes, Brant has had the most success of his wildest dreams. He's a big producer in Hollywood. One of the more famous things he's done is Bar Rescue, and this was very interesting.
Yeah, he walked us through some of the hardest times of his journey, his childhood, and he literally lives by the motto, reject average. So you know it's a good match to come on the Hyperconscious podcast, and we hope you enjoy it.
Don't miss this one.
Bye. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for listening to another episode of the Hyperconscious podcast.
Going hyperconscious will absolutely change your life because if you understand why something is the way it is, now you have the power to change it. If you going hyperconscious with us has changed your life in any way, please share this episode with one of your friends because the more people that go hyperconscious, the better this world's going to be for everybody.
And if you would kindly leave us a 5-star review on iTunes, that would help us make more people hyperconscious, and we would be greatly appreciative.
Thank you.
Bye.